Well, watercolor is a very elusive medium. There are a couple of conflicts we have to be aware of it. That one first of all is the tools we have. They are so perfectly done. A watercolor will last forever, and we can paint in any size. So that is the difficulty, is the fact that we can make very competitive work, but we as a watercolorist, one thing we face, it is the technical side of it as a challenge, which is, we need to, painting watercolors is a bit like playing chess. We need to follow certain aspects, certain path along the way in able to actually make a good stunning watercolor painting. And obviously the most difficult aspect in any type of medium we deal with, as far as painting is concerned, is creating mood, the ambience. That is the ultimatum, and that is well beyond technique. Basically, I don't care that much how you do the painting. The most important thing is the end result. And the most important thing, or the most difficult thing, is then to achieve mood, to achieve ambience. Obviously, I'm a professional painter, so I love what I'm doing. For me, this is a hobby, it's a pastime. So there is always winds of change, because you love what you're doing. You use certain palette for so long, and then all of a sudden you change for the better, you hope. And the other thing is, my dark colors, not only that is a new way of expressing myself, plus also is attending one of my most important requirements when I do a painting, that is to achieve ambience. And I don't think a colorful palette, it creates the ambience that I'm looking for. So when I'm restricting my colors for the painting, is searching for mood. And obviously there is another aspect in painting, which is sharp or hard edges versus soft edges. Forms that has a distinctive shape and all of a sudden get loose into the painting. Basically, it's because in the two things, hard edges and soft edges, that means we are talking about precisely edges, creates dynamics in a painting. And a painting has to have dynamic, because if we paint every shape with hard edges, then we end up with a static painting, a painting that doesn't move. In the city scenes or urban type of painting, I found noises, busyness, the hustle and bustle of the city, the happening, the confusion, the noise of the city. All that for me is like, I feel like a fish in the water when I do paint them. I always succumb to forms, meaning shapes, and also I do like light. Let's say the combination of two. When you have forms, cubes, and spheric shapes and square ones, but also you see light coming across and bouncing on different shapes and different forms, I succumb to that. I see forms in cities all the time. I squint my eyes. I'm almost living my life with the squinting eyes. Plenty of time just to see shapes. Yes, well, New York is amongst many other great cities I've seen, but it's one of the nicest ones I like to paint. We have to go back maybe to one of the second or third question, why I paint urban subjects. New York is a great example of an amazing urban type of city, but also the energy that emanates from the streets of New York. The busyness is the Big Apple. It's a small island, lots of people, lots of happening in a very interesting fashion. So once again, it's the noise, the smoke, the vapors of the subways, the yellow taxis, the people in, quickly, New York has a special energy, and the people, the audience who is listening to what I'm saying or attending what I'm saying, and if you've been in New York, ask yourself, don't you feel there is an energy in the city? Don't you feel there is a kind of ambience that, as a painter, it become almost irresistible to paint? I mean, I'm not saying New York is the bottom line. It's one of the cities that I love to paint often. There are many cities Moscow, it has its own particular feel to it, which actually, it will be great to paint it. But the thing is, and I finish, the answer is if I want to paint Moscow really well, I have to live here for a month. And not just going to paint straight away. You know what I mean? That will be activity. In art, you need to, once your inspiration comes, it has to follow by action. So I wait for that inspiration to come. So I love to touch the wall of Moscow, I like to smell the city of Moscow, I like to go to here and there, no painting, you know what I mean? Getting the feel of it. Finalizing, New York is an amazing city to paint it, and I know it well because I've been millions of times in that city. Always painting, when you paint New York, or when you paint for that matter any city in the world, you establish a very intimate link with the city. When you squint your eyes, when you look, or even when you memorize New York is not a colorful city like it could be maybe Rio de Janeiro in summertime. New York is silverly looking hue, is gray. If you go in a winterly day in New York, it's almost, obviously my answer, it depends on every individual, but when I'm in New York, also I sunset colors. You know what I mean? And part of New York, big part of New York, the industrial or the not so much industrial, but the more areas of, except if you are in Times Square, which is very colorful, but everywhere else in New York, when you go to suburbs or you go to Brooklyn, the bridges in New York, you always need a bridge in New York. They have that sort of feel, black, grays, metal, weathered colors. So it's the way I perceive New York, and I think color is a very important issue in artists, to choose your color the way you perceive the city. So black, grays, metal hues and all that sort of thing. For me, it has a connotation to New York. It's one of my favorite cities too, Paris to paint. Paris has a different connotation to painting. Paris is exuberant as far as shapes and amazing architecture, every step along the way. So what Paris, the shape, beautiful architecture of Paris creates is a certain quality of luminosity. Paris is sunny and many times. And the other thing is the colors of Paris. It differs to New York. I sense that New York, in many facets of the Big Apple, let's say, as I explained to you before, as a silverly looking grays, hues and whatever. Paris, it has that aspect too, but Paris is also with the penetration, let's say, of yellow ochre, yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is an earthy hue. And the combination of earthy hues and grays, as far as palette is concerned, it can describe very close to it the mood of Paris. And happen to be that these two colors is actually one of my most participant colors in my palette. New York is more louder. Paris is more quieter, more of a dancing type of energy I get. Well, look, coming to Moscow is coming to one of the cities of the world. You know, this is full of history. You know, and that's something that for me it deserves my greatest respect. When I'm in Moscow, I'm one of the cities in the world. We can be parallel and compared to New York in a different format, in a different fashion. It can be Paris. You know, I love to be here. I love to happen to be that I'm not too far away from the Red Square, so I see it very often. and it's a combination of not just a recognition of architecture and shapes, plus also a combination of history. You know, many things happen and being decided through those walls and through those buildings, and also it's a symbolism of with a great intimacy what Russia is all about. You know, so it has my total recognition and sheer pleasure of being here in one of the cities of the world, Moscow. Yes, I do remember the park. It was amazing. It's an amazing example of architecture. It's an amazing example of landscape architecture, exploiting the beauty of the city in a very pleasant way. I mean, that park is like a lung. We breathe in, we breathe out. And the busyness of the city, all of a sudden you have that beautiful, pleasant park and gardens and different type of trees, and with a beautiful, according to where you are, beautiful view of the river, Moscow. It's like a garden estate, you know what I mean? And I think that Moscow, because of all the buildings and all the avenues that we can contemplate here, having that bit of land that we can breathe air, let's say naturally, in the middle of the city is an amazing thing to happen. I love Moscow, and good for you that you live here.